92.7.
92.7. 92.7. 92.7.
92.7 WVHS FM. 92.7. 92.7 WVHS FM. Radio for the discerning VHS collector.
Captain Adam's Happy Hour.
On 92.7 WVHS FM. WVHS FM.
Captain Adam's Happy Hour.
Ahoy there, mates. You are listening to WVHS FM 92.7 on your radio dial, and welcome to Captain Adam's Happy Hour. I am Captain Adam of Captain Adam's VHS Pirate Ship, and this show is being simulcast both on WVHS FM and on Captain Adam's VHS Pirate Ship. So be sure to subscribe to both of those channels if you haven't already. So yes, welcome to Captain Adam's Happy Hour. This is a show where we discuss certain aspects of VHS collecting, and yes, believe it or not, there are many. And today, we're going to be discussing the movie Rad, more specifically, the VHS it spawned and why it's so popular and expensive nowadays. Now, Rad as a movie was released in theaters March of 1986, and oddly enough, it was directed by Hal Needham, the same director of the Cannonball Run films. So if you could believe that. Now, it was released later on in 86 by Embassy Home Video on VHS, and since then, the popularity of this VHS has certainly become an enigma because it goes for so much money on eBay. I myself managed to get a hold of a copy last year, and I got it for pretty cheap. It was actually one of the only auctions I've ever won in my life, and I immediately sold it for a little bit more than what I paid for it. But the point is, it went almost immediately, and I really don't understand what the fascination is with this movie because, well, let's be honest, on its face, it's not that great of a film. It is what it is. I mean, I saw it when I was a kid, and I enjoyed it because I was just a fat little turd who wanted to be a BMX superstar, and this movie hits all the right buttons when it comes to that. But as far as any kind of film, it's not even really worth revisiting, if I can be honest here. But, obviously that doesn't really matter because the VHS is incredibly expensive nowadays, or at least it tends to be. And also it's rather rare. And, I'm just a little confused as to why that is, why Rad, of all movies, is one of the most sought after VHS out there. And today we're going to be getting a little bit of help from Dr. Mark Slocumb. He is a professor of nostalgic studies at East Hamilton University, and he is going to be weighing in. In fact, we got him on the phone right now. Professor, or doctor, I should say, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Hello, yes. Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, and thank you for coming on. Now, explain to the listeners, and it may be kind of obvious what it is, but explain to the listeners what exactly is nostalgic studies.
Yes, there's not much pretense to it. It is exactly what it says it is. It's the study of anything nostalgia-oriented. Now, nostalgia as a word really has a lot of different spectrums to it. Now, in this particular study that we do at the university, we look back from a span of 40 years, mainly from anyone born in the 70s to the 90s, and we concentrate on that realm of nostalgia. Now, the funny part about nostalgia is that a lot of people consider themselves 80s kids, as it were, but many of those kids were born in like the early 80s, and they didn't really know what was going on until they were, much older, say 7, 8, 9, or 10. So, yes, you were born in the 80s, so technically you are an 80s kid, but you really didn't know what was going on until, like, say, the early 90s, perhaps.
Yeah, that's certainly true. I was born in the 80s, so technically I'm an 80s kid, but really my age of consciousness didn't come around till probably 87, 88. So I sort of was on the tail end of all this stuff that we look back on in like nostalgic, sentimental view stuff. I was sort of at the tail end of all that because I didn't really remember it as it was going on because I was too young. But, technically, early 90s is really more what I remember rather fondly and clearly.
And that's completely fine. Like you said, technically you are an 80s kid, but really your age of consciousness didn't come till much later in that decade. So, I mean, it still counts. And I'm sure you remember stuff about the 80s, that you look back on rather warmly. But, yeah, the 90s is basically where your nostalgia probably focuses on. And, of course, we study that era as well. One of the interesting parts about studying nostalgia is you uncover things that a lot of people sort of forgot about or glanced over in lieu of something more interesting to them. But you sort of lose memories of stuff that existed alongside other things that you were more interested in. So it's fun to uncover them. And once you see them, you're like, oh, I remember that. And it's just fun to study where that path goes.
Yeah, there's lots of stuff that I grew up with, or at least was exposed to, that I have no memory of because, well, I was just paying attention to other things, or I was just too busy being a dumb kid to really realize they were there. So it's fun to look now and to remember, say stuff like, oh, I remember that, I totally forgot about it. So it is fun to look back, and it is worth studying because it's a huge part of our history.
And again, that's fine. That's very natural. We all were dumb kids. I think it's a rite of passage. In fact, dumb and kid sort of go hand in hand. They're synonymous with each other because, well, we're all supposed to be dumb at young ages because we haven't really learned or experienced much. So, of course, we're not going to be as smart as we would be as adults, or at least hopefully.
So, in your opinion, what would you say the thing with Rad is? Why do you suppose there's been such a resurgence in its popularity, even though it didn't really seem to have much popularity when it first came out?
Rad as a film in and of itself is very interesting because it wasn't that big of a hit when it came out. I believe it made 1 million less at the box office when it was released. So that's not really what you want in a film. And it sort of was a rather niche market as far as like BMX movies goes. And that's another interesting thing. BMX was a really big thing through that time period. And I'm surprised that there weren't more movies made about it. I mean, to my recollection, there's Rad and, of course, BMX Bandits, which, if you've seen it, and I'm sure you have, it doesn't really have much to do with BMX, does it? But, it is what it is. Now Rad is its own little thing. I mean, for a movie about BMX, it didn't do as well as it probably should have, given the fact that BMX was really hot at that time. And, it did what it did. And, but as far as like BMX movies goes, like I said, there really wasn't and isn't that many to choose from. So that's pretty much what you had.
Yeah, I mean, and of course, if a movie isn't, that widely exposed, then it's not going to have many forms of home media, especially VHS. In this case, there was only one U.S. release, and I'm quite certain they didn't produce a lot of them, adding to its rarity nowadays. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's what drives any kind of collector's market is if there was less of one thing, it's going to be more coveted in the future. So that, I think, primarily is the reason why Rad is one of these VHS that just goes for a lot of money nowadays. Now, you know as well as I do that the market pretty much conflicts itself as it does confirm itself, where something is only worth what someone is going to pay for it. So you could put VHS up on eBay all day long for $100. Doesn't mean squat. But the minute somebody buys it for that, then of course it is worth $100. But that's happenstance, and that's neither here nor there. But with Rad, I've noticed a tendency for it to go for some pretty high prices, and I think the appeal of it is the fact that it was a seldom known window in time that that is there. It existed. People gradually remembered it, but initially they just glanced over it. So usually when something is initially forgotten about or just looked over, it eventually will be rediscovered. And when that happens, people think that they found the next best thing. And of course, looking through everything in a nostalgic lens, it's all rose tinted. With nostalgia, the older you get, the more you want to look back, and you tend to think of those times more fondly than they probably were. We tend to think like the 80s were so much better, when in reality they probably weren't that much better. They might have been more fun, at least to our conscious recollection. But, Rad as a VHS is very strange that it goes for the prices it does go for. And this has been the case for several years now, and I don't know if that trend's going to continue. Usually these sort of things sort of just die off on their own, but as it stands now, Rad as a VHS is a very coveted VHS to have.
Yeah, it's just extremely bizarre. I mean, usually when you think of like rare or expensive VHS, or at least VHS that are worth a lot of money, you tend to think of like horror movies, early horror movies, or maybe some lesser known sci-fi flicks, like foreign horror movies, stuff that it's stuff that never got a DVD transfer as of yet. That's the stuff that typically goes for a lot of money, and that's usually what drives the market. And to think that Rad is on that level is just really odd to me. And I think it's very funny, and it's one of the more bizarre aspects of VHS collecting, because it's just odd. If anyone's a VHS collector out there, then of course, the horror movies are what everybody wants. For some reason, VHS and horror go hand in hand, but that's obviously not always the case. And this is one of those instances where it's a movie about BMX that you could pay more money for than, say, the first VHS release of Friday the 13th or Halloween. So it's right up there with them, and to me that's just really odd.
You're absolutely right. It is odd to think that you're going to pay more for a copy of Rad on VHS than you would for a copy of Slaughter High or something like that. It's just it's phenomenal how these things sort of work out. And as far as like who decided that Rad was going to be so sought after now, I really couldn't trace that back to anything other than nostalgia always looks better now. That's what I always tell my class, is that even though things back then weren't as good as we remember them being, and if we could get in a time machine and go back to those times, we more than likely would not enjoy them as much as we thought we did. So memory is usually better than reality. And, I think this is a case here, maybe vice versa. I don't know. It's a conundrum, and it's very weird that Rad is such a popular VHS that goes for so much money nowadays.
Yeah, and what's more interesting about that is the fact that Rad never makes it to any of these lists you see on the internet about all the most expensive VHS today. They always say like the clickbait line. Do you have any of these VHS? Well, you could own $1,000 and all this stuff. It's never on those lists. I mean, I think those lists are a crock of crap. What do you think about those lists?
Well, I think you said it best. They are a crock, and they're clickbait. They're articles written by people who have no idea what VH collecting is, and barely have any idea of what VHS even is, let alone stand for. So, those lists are pretty. I guess the only word I can say is what you said. They're pretty crap. And, if you read these lists, you're like, there's no way any of this stuff is worth the kind of money they're saying it's worth. And who says it's worth that much? You can't have a list that says Beauty and the Beast is worth $2,000. I mean, it's a VHS that was made by Walt Disney Home Video, for heaven's sakes. They made millions and millions of copies of this. I don't care what era it's from, because they always say the Black Diamond, the Black Diamond stuff, and you even did a video on that, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. That is just it's just crap. It's clickbait. It's just stuff to make you think, I could have some actual antiques. When really, VHS are VHS. They're neat and everything, but it all depends on if someone's going to buy them for whatever price it's set at. That means it's going to be worth anything. So for an internet list to tell you what VHS is worth what is, it's crap.
And it's annoying too, because anytime you Google anything at all to do with VHS, that's always one of the first articles that pops up is something stating that these VHS that are so common are worth a lot of money, and it's just not true. The one good thing about it is, though, these articles do draw attention to the hobby and the VHS culture, and as many eyes on it is good. But I don't know, it might be a bit of a negative attention. I don't know. Well, anyways, we got to go to commercial here. So, Doctor, I really appreciate you coming on the show today, and we hope to talk to you again.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Take care, Adam.
Dr. Mark Slocumb, ladies and gentlemen, professor of nostalgic studies at East Hamilton University, and you are listening to Captain Adams Happy Hour right here on WVHS FM 92.7 on your radio dial.
WVHS FM.
This block of smooth gold on WVHS FM 92.7 is brought to you in part by Eckhart Retirement and Investments. Eckhart, think about the future. And by Watkins brand Oh My Gravy. Home style taste you can see.
WVHS FM.
that top 40 rock and roll music, that garbage.
WVHS FM
92.7.
92.7. 92.7. 92.7.
92.7.
WVHS FM
92.7. 92.7 WVHS FM. Radio for the discerning VHS collector.
Captain Adams Happy Hour
On 92.7 WVHS FM.
WVHS FM Captain Adams Happy Hour.
All right, welcome back to the show. You are on WVHS FM 92.7, and you are listening to Captain Adams Happy Hour. I am Captain Adam, and today we've been talking about Rad and the VHS that for some reason is worth a lot of money today. Now, as ridiculous as you might think it is, and it is ridiculous, trust me, it's absolutely true. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, let's take a look at eBay right now at the current listings. There are, looks like here, several different listings, and basically they're all above $70. The most expensive is $166, and the the most unbelievable part about that is there's 18 watchers on it. So you know, it's something that you wouldn't think people took seriously, but apparently they do. So it's it's what a bizarre thing, and you wonder how it got to this point. Did it start off as like a joke? Someone just put it up on eBay for a high price, and it just sort of caught on and became its own self-fulfilling prophecy, or is it Is it greater than I think it is? But I don't really think it is that great. But yeah, $166. That's man, that's a lot of money for a VHS. I mean, especially Rad. Now it only had one U.S. VHS distribution. That was in 1986 by Embassy Home Video, and it was mused earlier that perhaps that affected the rarity of it. And of course, it does, but that's not the only movie that's ever had one U.S. VHS release. And for those, it didn't really seem like it made much of a difference because not everything that only had one VHS release is worth a lot of money today. So, you just wonder how this stuff goes down. And I know, by proxy, it may seem like I'm trashing the movie. I mean, I'm not trashing it. It's okay. Like I said before, it is what it is. It's a movie about BMX, and it was intended for a certain audience, and that's what it got. But I mean, as far as its VHS being worth $166, I don't know about that. And the weird part is, when I was a kid, I was all about this movie. I rented it so many times that they actually sold it to us for a reasonable price, if I remember correctly. And we had a copy of it. And I even had the soundtrack on cassette. And of course, the soundtrack is famous for having, who are they called? The band that did that song, Send Me an Angel, Real Life. That's the soundtrack was popular just for that. So, Red, I mean, I guess in a way it was sort of a big deal, at least for a certain group, but not that big of a deal. And of course, it didn't do very well in theaters. Dr. Slocumb said earlier, a million less at the box office. He meant by the budget of the film. The film was 2 million, and it only took in 1 million at the box office. So, that's not exactly good. But when it comes to that kind of stuff, the best you can hope for is breaking even, and that didn't even do that. So, as far as the film goes, technically it was a flop, but I guess, it's one of those cult classics that you hear so much about, and, I guess that's part of the charm of it. But I don't know, $166, it's not that charming. I mean, I tell you what, I have a hard time paying anything, or buying anything for $166. I mean, let alone a Rad VHS. I just don't know about that. But and we were talking about the famous internet list earlier, the ones that tell you what VHS is worth a lot of money, and all this other crap. The thing about those is their prices are absolutely outrageous. I mean, they have stuff like, I don't know, any Disney film in the so-called Black Diamond Classics case or whatever it is. They always put them at prices like just absolutely astounding, in the thousands of dollars, and there is nothing in the VHS world that is worth that much. The closest you come to some kind of prices like that is the famous 1974 Italian horror flick Frankenstein's Castle of Freaks. It was released by Magnum Home Video sometime in the early 80s. That is fetching a price of $1,000 right now, but that's, it's because it's the only one, the only listing that's up there that I found, and, it's just, obviously the seller just put a number on there and was just shotgunning it out there because, why not? Maybe you can get it for that. But then the next one is a different distribution, and I don't know who it's from, but that's almost $700. That's about it. Nothing else comes close to the numbers that those lists proclaim that Disney VHS are worth. I mean, Disney VHS, of all things, Disney VHS, they made so many of them. They're absolutely not rare. You could buy them anywhere, grocery stores, for heaven's sakes. I mean, everybody had Disney VHS. There's no reason to think that they're rare today, let alone worth thousands of dollars. It's just stupid. So if you ever come across one of these lists, if you want to look at them just for a laugh, go right ahead, but don't take them seriously, for heaven's sakes. But, Frankenstein's Castle of Freaks fits into the category of the rare and expensive VHS, quite perfectly. It's a foreign horror flick. It's not that well known, and it didn't have that many distributions for it. So, it is just what it is. It's the perfect example of a rare VHS that is, qualifiable for being worth as much as people are trying to sell it for, because not everybody has one. I mean, basically, there's probably 4 listings for it, because it was also released with Mad Butcher. I don't remember what the distributor is called, but it was released as a double feature as well. So there are, I believe, 3 different U.S. VHS distributions for Frankenstein's Castle of Freaks, and each one, fetches a pretty high price. But and it's funny because you think of that movie, and you think of it as the rare and expensive VHS, of course, because it's a foreign horror movie. But then, like I said earlier, now in that category, you're also putting Red because of the value of the VHS, and it's just bizarre. And speaking of bizarre, let me move on to the next film here, and let me preface this real quick. Through the 80s, BMX was rather popular, but it certainly was not the mainstream sport that it is now. I mean, this was long before X Games came along and pretty much put BMX in the limelight. But before that, I mean, BMX of course was popular, but it was more like an underground sport, I guess you could say, for lack of a better term. And it was a radical sport. Radical. They toss that word around like it's I don't know, it just seemed like radical was always used very improperly through the 80s. But anyways, there was another radical sport, and that was skateboarding. Like through the 80s, skateboarding was very much punk rock. It was a very much underground sport, and it certainly did not have the spotlight that it has today. Now it's like it's a huge industry and all this, but before that, it was pretty much underground, and but it was also very popular to a certain degree, popular enough to have its own movie. In 1986, we got Thrashin'. We all more than likely remember Thrashin'. Josh Brolin was in it. I'm pretty sure it was the movie he did after The Goonies, and then and that's about it. He has a weird career, whereas like through the 80s he did a few things and then just sort of disappeared for a while, and we didn't see him again till the 2000s, when seemingly he was in everything. He was in what is that movie? No Country for Old Men. He was George W. Bush, and I think it was just called W. And of course, he eventually would be Thanos, and he was in Hollow Man. So yeah, he just kind of had a strange little lull in his career. But anyways, yeah, he was in Thrashin', the skateboarding film. That's well, I guess it was received okay. I can't really find any box office numbers on this. That's odd. Usually they have that up there. But anyways, yeah, Thrashin' was a film, and like Rad, it contained excuse me, let me start over again. Like Rad, it contained an underground sport, and of course, it was released in the same year as Rad in 1986. But the thing about Thrashin' is, people really didn't think twice about it until sort of just recently, to where now it's like, oh, it's hip to watch Thrashin' and all this. And well, I guess it's pretty much just viewed and regarded in the same way that Rad is, because usually those two films are compared to each other because they both contain quote unquote underground sports. So of course they're going to be pretty much right next to each other. Thrashin', it's a film that I saw once when I was a kid. I rented it, and I don't really remember much about it. I haven't revisited it in a while. Maybe I should. I don't know. I sort of don't want to, but it might be worth a rewatch. I did find out some interesting tidbits about it. Let's see, it was released in '86, and the cast contains. Let's see here. Oh yeah, being a skateboarding movie, it does have some pro skaters in it. Tony Hawk is in it. This was '86, so he was still part of the Bone Brigade or Bones Brigade or whatever it was. And this is before he had any kind of spotlight. We're talking decades before he had his own video games and stuff like that. This was like before he was even a thing. He was in this movie, and let's see who else is in it. And the Red Hot Chili Peppers make an appearance in it. Again, this is '86. This is before they got really popular. So this was like very underground stuff here. So it does seem pretty interesting. I do remember it being rather cheesy, but really what wasn't. And I guess that's subjective. So maybe I should watch this again. I don't know, but. Anyways, yes, another interesting aspect about Thrashin' is, and again, let me preface this one more time here. Speaking of VHS, if you thought the Rad VHS went for a lot of money today, wait till you see what the Thrashin' VHS is going for. Like Rad, Thrashin' only had one U.S. VHS distribution. It was released in 1987 by Virgin Home Video, and also like Rad, it goes for an outrageous amount of money. But unlike Rad, it only has one current listing. Okay, so it is considered hyper rare. There's only one listing on eBay for it so far, and you're going to love this. This is absolutely unbelievable. It is currently going for $6,000. $6,000 for Thrashin' on VHS. Now, This appears to be an absolute mint copy. It's in a glass case, for heaven's sakes. It's a graded copy of VHS. I didn't even think you could grade VHS like you would comics or baseball cards, but apparently you can. And this is grade A. This is absolute mint condition, and it's the only listing. So, but $6,000, and come on, oh, look at that. They couldn't include free shipping on that. It's like $5 shipping. So, I don't know. If I'm selling something for $6,000 and it's a tape, I'm including free shipping because I mean it's why wouldn't you include free shipping? That's just sort of insulting. But yes, so get a load of that. $6,000 for Thrashin on VHS. So I found that I had to bring it up. It's. And again, Thrashin is not on any of those internet lists that say, these tapes are worth a lot of money. That is a lot of money. $6,000, I mean, come on. Now, that's what it's selling for. What it's worth, I don't know. I mean, like I said earlier, the minute somebody buys it for that, then it is, well, I didn't say that. Dr. Slocumb said that, but you know what I mean. Then it is worth $6,000. I don't know who's going to pay that money for it. I mean, I don't know. Maybe... and I think that if we put stuff on eBay, I think this way sometimes, that, you put something on for like maybe a price that's a little too steep in the hopes that maybe somebody would say, hey, that's reasonable, I'll buy it. In this case, $6,000, you're really hoping for this eccentric VHS collector who has like money to blow, like Bruce Wayne type money, who has no problem dropping $6,000 on a VHS tape. That's what you hope for when you list stuff like this. You're always hoping for that weirdo millionaire who has no problem paying that kind of money, but that doesn't happen. So whoever this person is selling this, I really wish you the best in getting that money for it, but I really don't think you're going to. But it is what it is. And again, like Rad, this VHS is really breaking the stereotype that a VHS is only worth a lot of money if it's horror or sci-fi related. I mean, this is neither. It's just a movie about skateboarding, for heaven's sakes. And it's going for $6,000. It's incredible to me. Well, anyways, we got to take a station break real quick, but stay tuned. When we come back, we'll get into what makes this hour so happy. We'll get into the beer. Yes, a beer review coming up after the break. So stay tuned to WVHS FM 92.7.
WVHS FM.
This block of smooth gold on WVHS FM 92.7 is brought to you by Sunnyside Sundries Convenience Stores. Convenient is what they are. Convenience is what you pay for. Yes, the goods are more expensive, but where else will you find tampons and dog food all in the same place at 3 in the morning? Open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, Sunnyside Sundries Convenience Stores is here for you. And while you're there, be sure to pick up one of their special quarter-pound tater dogs, paired up with a 32-ounce sludgy, any flavor, for only $2.99. With 25 convenient locations all over the tri-state area, there's a Sunnyside Sundries Convenience Store right around the corner from you. Keep on the sunny side of life with Sunnyside Sundries Convenience Stores. Convenient is what they are, and convenience is what you pay for.
WVHS FM. WVHS FM
92.7.
92.7. 92.7. 92.7.
92.7.
WVHS FM
92.7. 92.7 WVHS FM. Radio for the discerning VHS collector.
Captain Adams Happy Hour
On 92.7 WVHS FM.
WVHS FM
Captain Adams Happy Hour. Welcome back to the show. You are on WVHS FM 92.7 and you are listening to Captain Adams Happy Hour. I am Captain Adam. So far we've talked about the movies Rad and Thrashin and the VHSs they have, and more specifically the high prices they command nowadays. So, it's been a day of revelation. The prices are pretty outrageous. So how about you? Do you have any of these VHS? And if you do you know what you have? So, if you have these, you got some pretty good stuff. Why? I don't know. But they do fetch some pretty high prices. So, I don't know. If you have them, I would hang on to them because, well, apparently they're pretty special. Who would have thought? But they are. So anyways, the show is called Captain Adams Happy Hour. It wouldn't be happy hour without some sort of alcohol. So we're going to do some beer reviews on this show as well. Now, I know I failed to mention this earlier, whether or not it's because I am unprofessional and have no idea what I'm doing, or it's because I just thought of the idea and wanted to include it in the show. Who knows? It's a mystery. So either way, let's move forward. Today, we're trying the beer from Victory Brewing called Summer Love. Summer Love. It's a golden ale, a seasonal favorite of theirs, it says. It's interesting that the summer ales are already out in stores when winter has just started. That goes to show you that nobody likes winter. Everybody wants the summer. So if you're one of those people that does like the winter, please just keep it to yourself. Nobody wants to hear that kind of negative talk. So yes, this is a golden ale. 5.2% alcohol volume. So, it's, pretty light, but also, I don't know, it'll do the trick. Let's see. Let's see here. The label on the bottle describes it as a taste of sunshine. Summer is all about good vibes. This refreshing beer includes earthy and lemony hop notes that create that create an unexpected burst of flavor for a vibrant taste combination that you will never forget. Okay, let's take it easy there, Hemingway. They got to make it sound good, so I don't know. That's pretty descriptive, don't you think? It's pretty descriptive. A summer ale, so I'm guessing it's very light and citrusy. So let's go ahead and crack this bad boy open. There we go. Oh, it's got a nice voice. Let's take a peek into the bottle here. Let's see. It's always hard to tell with a brown bottle, but usually I use a draft glass, but I don't have one, so, screw you. But anyways, the color looks pretty good. It's not a pissy hue, which, by the way, that's my punk band's name, Pissy Hue. Be sure to see us at the Kit Kat Club this weekend. It's a nice golden color, so it's definitely golden ale is a befitting name for it, so that's nice. Not much of a smell. It's not very overpowering. Not much. I don't know. Not much citrus. Because usually, if a beer is like citrusy, it smells like furniture polish. This doesn't. This is okay. This is okay. Let's. I think we've let it breathe long enough. Let's take a sip of this bad boy. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. Yeah, it's not bad. Hold on. Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. I'm not that big of a fan of golden ales, but I do have one from time to time. This is pretty okay. I mean, it's certainly a summer ale. It's very light. It's not very hoppy. It's certainly not heavy. It's something that you could drink a couple of these and have a pretty good time, and be in those beer commercials you always see where everybody's young and having fun near a lake or something. So yeah, I mean this is okay. Let's see, Victory Brewing. Victory Brewing. They were founded in 1996. So in the beer game, I suppose that's relatively young, considering there have been breweries around since the 1800s. So this is relatively new. They operate out of Downingtown, Pennsylvania. Victory Brewing Company. Not bad stuff. This is pretty good. Like I said, I'm not a fan of golden ales. I sort of like, I don't know, I like a bit heavier stuff, but this is rather enjoyable. Yes, indeed, quite so. Rather enjoyable. Let me take another sip here. Hold on. Yeah, it's pretty good. You see, excuse me. The problem with like summer ales is they always include like citrus flavors for some reason. I don't know. Citrus and summer goes hand in hand, but usually they sort of like overpower them with citrus. So you're pretty much just like drinking mango glade instead of beer. So it's this is nice. It's a good balance, a very good balance. So yeah. Victory Brewing Company, Summer Love, Golden Ale, 5.2% alcohol volume. Not too bad. Not too bad. It's pretty good. So I mean, if you wanted to get a 6-pack of these and go to the beach and be young and fit and throw the old frisbee around and chug down a couple of these, go right ahead. It's very fitting. So you have. Oh, hold on a second. Oh, here it comes. Oh man! Oh, I gotta tell you, oh, that aftertaste is a little sharp. Oh God! Oh, it's okay. I'm okay. Everything's okay. I tell you what, you can certainly tell that there's citrus notes in there because that tasted pretty citrusy. So maybe not going down so much as it does coming up because there is an afterlife there. So yeah, it's not bad. Victory Brewing Company, Summer Love. Check them out. Their products are probably worth reviewing again on this particular show. So yes. Well, I tell you what, that about does it for today. I know it's called a happy hour, but it's not an hour. So give me a break. Sue me if you want to. In fact, please do. I could use the press. So, stay tuned to WVHS FM 92.7 as there's lots of neato programming on here. And be sure to hit subscribe to Captain Adams VHS Pirate Ship on YouTube as well as WVHS FM. Subscribe to both channels. Both are very awesome, if I may say so myself. Well, that about does it. Yes, everything's okay. Let me try that again. That about does it for today's Captain Adams Happy Hour on WVHS FM 92.7. Be sure to stay tuned, and you know what? Hopefully I'll see you next time. Take care out there.
Captain Adams Happy Hour. WVHS FM 92.7.
92.7. 92.7. 92.7.
92.7. WVHS FM 92.7. 92.7 WVHS FM. Radio for the discerning VHS collector. Captain Adams Happy Hour on 92.7 WVHS FM. WVHS FM. Captain Adams Happy Hour.